He says the incident is a way for the Russian leader to motivate his people as he has no victories. These people on the streets of Moscow are sceptical it happened at all.
I think it's all make-believe. It couldn't have happened. We can't have that happening here.
I haven't heard this information. If there was such an attempt, it doesn't sound good. I hope there'll be a response.
Tax receipts to the end of April were up €3 billion or 14% on an annual basis. They're driven by strong income tax, VAT and corporation tax receipts. Despite this, an exchequer deficit of €3.7 billion was recorded in the first 4 months of this year. Business journalist Emmett Oliver says that's due to the transfer of €4 billion to the National Reserve Fund.
Personally, I'd prefer to see the underlying position before they move the money out in each month's figures, but they want to give a general political signal, I suppose, that this money is windfall, it's siphoned away in a separate account, which it is. It's not really there per se, but I think a lot of taxpayers and a lot of members of the public would like to know, what is the underlying position? Are we making a big surplus or a deficit, or what's going on?
Donald Trump has arrived at Shannon Airport. The former US president is now en route via cavalcade to his hotel and golf resort in Doonbeg. Local Irish dancers and musicians will greet him and his son Eric when they arrive. Tom and May McCarthy are on holidays from the States and they say they are hoping to meet Mr. Trump this evening.
We made the tea time and then found out later he was coming. We were wearing our hats anyway, even if he wasn't going to be here.
He's my champion. He's the best president in modern times in the United States of America. That's why America was doing so well with him as president.
Farmers are warning that retail price wars are a real threat. A number of major supermarkets are cutting the price of own brand butter from tomorrow. The move comes just days after milk prices were cut. That's your news. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Release your dad bod this summer with low fare flights to Ibiza, Malaga or Zadar.
Mainly dry tomorrow morning with outbreaks of rain developing throughout the afternoon. Highest temperatures of 11 to 14 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Well, we have got a big amount of money to give away on the cash machine coming up from this past bank holiday week. It is a nice, easy one to remember for this week. €75,000 exactly. Text play to 57557. That is 57557. Get your entry in by 3 p.m. on Friday. Then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn is making that all-important call. If your phone rings, answer it within 5 rings. Tell him that exact amount in euro and cent, and you will take away the cash. So remember the amount again, €75,000 exactly. Over 18s only. Text will cost €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You are playing across the Go Loud network of stations, and terms and conditions are on newstalk.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome along to the Football Show. We're going to be talking to Gareth McCay from the Ryan McBride Foundation around about 9:30. But Dan McDonnell is back with me. We're keeping an eye on the Premier League this evening. Second halves are just underway at both the Etihad and at Anfield. Liverpool lead against Fulham by 1-0. Mo Salah scoring from the penalty spot in the 17th minute. And Man City, despite a couple of good chances, particularly one for Rodri just before half-time, are being held by West Ham, currently 0-0. Now, you were saying earlier, Dan, that it's at this point it's completely advantaged Man City in the title race after what happened last week. But when you look at the fixtures they have left, so they've got Everton, Leeds, West Ham as part of this run. They're playing a lot of teams towards the bottom of the table who will probably dig in to just try and frustrate them over the next 4 weeks.
Well, that's it. I mean, they're facing the best manager in world football on Saturday.
By his own admission.
So, I mean, that couldn't have been anticipated at the start of the week. I mean, like, there's probably two sides to it with that. Yeah, of course, you're playing teams fighting for your life, but in recent weeks they've played Southampton and Leicester. And had no real issues with it. I understand where you're coming from, but I feel sometimes with this City team, like it's sometimes it's these like home games against the team. Like West Ham are sort of safe now, really. I mean, they're sort of, they're not quite safe. Like these games against Crystal Palace at various times over the years where they drop off. I feel like a game where it's really intense. They have the sort of cool, they have the emotional cool to navigate it. But I mean, like it is true. Like it's more to me the mental energy they're going to expand in the Real Madrid games, and it's coming off the back of that. You'd be vulnerable rather than the teams you're actually playing. For me,
I don't think it was any great giveaway when the B reel that was put up by Jack Grealish had shown on the other side of the screen that there was goal and the Champions League trophy, which was their season goal that they've got up in the dressing room. I think most people would have expected that City's primary goal is to try and win Europe.
No, it is. Like, I mean, I think is winning the league this season going to cement their legacy? No. Is Champions League? Yes. And it's not as if it's not as if it's one of these leagues where coming second, not winning your league costs you something in in August. It doesn't. It's annoying. Like that's a bit of a pain, but it's not going to have any impact on their finances or their wealth or whatever they do. So it's not all or nothing for them. To sort of an Amazon documentary phrase that might apply to some of the other clubs that are involved in it. So it's true, yeah. But in saying that, I suppose like you got to think. These are elite athletes, and I don't know, like that competitive streak has to burn within you. You pick and choose where you want to prioritise. I find with teams that often doesn't go well.
They're an elite team also who tend to time their runs at the end of a season, and this has been the case even with the Liverpool seasons where they had to take it right down and go over 90 points to win a title. And it's only that one season where Liverpool have won that's broken this absolute domination in the Pep Guardiola era of this Manchester City side. So they've become quite good at timing being good at the end of the season.
Yeah, like I remember reading here a couple of years ago talking rubbish actually about how City tend to, sometimes like chuck it in for a season, and they did in the Mancini years, and like Pellegrini, like they'd had the odd season where they just would have this like inexplicable drop off, and there was an element of that in the Liverpool title winning season, not to take anything away from it, unusual fragility, but you step back from it now and look at the honours list in isolation as they score. You sort of realise that this actually is a dynasty. It's just like that Liverpool win was so epic, and so emotional and so emotive, but it really was. It's just it's stopping it being like one of these other European leagues where there's 6 or 7 in a row.
I thought they were going to have a quick look to see if it was offside. So it's a free kick that swung in from the left hand side. Nathan Aki is there at the back post to head it home, and probably for David Moyes the most annoying thing about this, if you look at it, Dan, is the fact that there were actually 2 players at the back post in John Stones and Aki, which they usually are so well set up at set pieces. You wouldn't think that a central defender would have got there to get a free header.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes with these big teams, like you sort of naturally analyse their dominance in the context of like they're outstanding footballers, but what's that line? World class basics. They're often just very good on set pieces.
That'll be up at 501 for your world class basics. Yeah,
and like that's often what they do. Like they actually have got big goals from set pieces this year. It's not what you would ever think of, I think, when you talk about Man City. But I don't know what's I'm not sure what's happened with West Ham there, but you sort of think, right, if you hold out for that long, don't concede that type of goal. Walk away thinking you've been undone by brilliance, not the basics. But I mean, there's no coincidence that City did them better.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about City is they evolved, Dan, when it comes to these seasons. That João Cancelo has been so important in recent years for them, particularly with the way they carry the ball forward. And now you see John Stones stepping into this auxiliary midfield role where he can also step back into defence. They've gone back to using the 3 centre backs again. Grealish has found a way to become more involved in the team this season. He finds different ways and different solutions, even in the middle of a season. Oh yeah, and I mean the Grealish evolution was probably one of the big stories of the season. Maybe just more interested in it because of his background, but no, it is true. Like and when the Stones thing again probably just exposes the depth of their squad, that they have someone who has the all-round skill set to be able to do that quite comfortably. Now I know they do dominate a lot of games, and we'll see how it pans out at the sharp end of the Champions League, and will some of the things they've tried be relevant to that, or will we see a slightly different thing? They do have
I mean, they should. I mean, not to take away from, they should be winning most of these games. You know, like with the muscle they have, with the like, it is a state-funded project, effectively. You know, and they do have. That's my point, I suppose. Like, it takes away from an element of the achievement, rightly or wrongly, as much as that's annoying for them. But like, even if they said they don't win the league, I mean, if they don't even win the Champions League, they can go again without any difficulty. This isn't stating the obvious. It's been well documented, but it is. You know, you can laud them sometimes, and I do. I enjoy watching them, but I suppose you always have to check yourself sometimes of why that is.
Yeah, big spending elsewhere. Chelsea. Reading Barney Renee's article in The Guardian earlier today. So the total output from Todd Bowley is, I think, coming up somewhere like $1 billion at this point, because we just look at the transfer figures, but when wages are taken into account, and you also take the huge amount of money that Todd Bowley had to spend to purchase the club from Roman Abramovich last season as well.
Yeah.
It's remarkable what poor quality we're seeing on the pitch, despite the standard of squad and the amount of good players they have.
Yeah, like, I can't figure out if it's really funny or not. You know, the Chelsea thing. I just don't think it's funny.
I think people take a certain enjoyment.
And then
from
sometimes I think it's like just the most absurd reflection of like modern football. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's just it's absolutely preposterous. That you can be that bad having spent so much, but you know, that power insulates you from real consequences. You know, okay, you're not going to be in Europe or whatever. They miss out in Champions League funds, and we'll see. You know, was Bowley and co fully on top of the cost of a bad year? Who knows? And like football as well, I still think over time, like, if you spend enough money, you'll eventually get there. You know, the ability they have to spend in the short term. We've seen that with Newcastle, except they've been smart. You know, Man City over the years, after some early blips, they were smart. I mean, I'm guessing we're not talking about like a state-backed thing here with Chelsea, so we'll see. Like, I mean, is there a danger with this type of owner that you invite so much ridicule that there comes a point where your pride dilutes your interest in it? I mean, it's possible.
It depends how true these reports were. That Todd Bowley had apparently gone into the dressing room and kind of went, I've spent $500 million on this team. How is it possible that you guys are performing so bad?
Yeah, like that would, like, it sort of would worry you, you know. But this is the thing, like, Chelsea is such an appeal. Like, people thought when the Abramovich thing happened around sanctions and you know, the war, oh, you know, Chelsea are screwed here, you know, and they had like the empty seats at games and you know, there's a tough line being taken to them, and will Chelsea ever be the same again? And then you fast forward a period of time, and like, this is the thing, like, the Premier League is such a monster, and the franchises, to use an American term within it, are so attractive if they're big ones, that you can sort of get away with being sort of recklessly bad. So like, in some ways it's funny, and I mean, I'm enjoying a lot of the content around it, but in other ways it's almost like it's a reflection of like how madly sick the game is in other ways too.
Like last night's performance, we were watching here, first goal particularly, the Odegaard one, where ball comes down Chelsea's right hand side. Grant Xhaka has all the time in the world to pull the ball across. And Odegaard, who Chelsea know are so important, they've deployed 3 players in a kind of a holding position in their midfield. Yet Odegaard is standing there unmarked to curl the ball in.
Yeah, I know. Like,
it shouldn't happen. That's not the basic effort.
No, like, and that's it. I mean, it's almost. You know, it's almost wasting time to analyse it, how bad it is. You know what I mean? In the sense of like, it's so staring you in the face. Like, it's the application of the basics, and you know, that you can be that easy to play against when you are in what is the best league in the world. You know, and you can be a big spender within that and be so just fragile, or, you know, disorganised, and you know, you can pick apart the details of it, but it feels like there's no one thing. It's just like the whole piece, the whole overall thing is broken. But again, don't rule out them spending their way out of trouble either. And like, you know, a sane sort of managerial appointment, you know, someone who probably in a way is helped, whether it's Pochettino or whatever, who's helped by the chaos this year in terms of expectations, that like they're, whatever happens, you know, probably going to do better next year, and it's easy to sell that as a progress, that eventually they'll probably be okay.
Because that is the history of the club since Abramovich took them over. There's been, you know, managers who've had short stints, and Chelsea have decided to go in a totally different direction, and so many times we've questioned, even to Thomas Tuchel when he came in the year that they won the Champions League, you're thinking there's no way he can have that kind of transformative effect. The team that Frank has right now is not strong enough. They weren't able to invest because of the transfer window bans, and you're thinking there's no way they can do it. And yet a coach comes in, gets them organised, and they win the Champions League.
Yeah, like they've won 2 Champions Leagues by sort of not playing by the rules of what people think you would need. Like, everyone likes a story when a team wins a trophy, like a nice, coherent, how it happened thread, which again, like, reaches the conclusion that this has been the product of a long-standing plan, and they've been building towards this, and they haven't really done that. And I know that's often the defence of the Chelsea sort of model over the years, that yes, other clubs, need to get to the sort of top of the mountain, needed like the Klopp type figure, or even at Spurs, Pochettino at Spurs. Maybe that's why that's an interesting one here. It felt like, he's the right fit for what they need to get there, whereas Chelsea is just more the pick and mix in terms of what you need to do, and that's why you sort of think, well, this will work for them again, and maybe it will. Like, maybe it's the 18-month cycle, but that's why the Pochettino link is one that I would find more interesting than some of their other appointments.
Yeah.
Potter was supposed to be that, though, wasn't he? Like, that's the only thing.
And
Potter was meant to be that,
and he was to be given time no matter what when he went in. That didn't happen.
No, and I mean, like, the briefing around that was, oh yeah, he will be. Yeah, he will be, definitely going nowhere. Yeah, he's gone.
Well, we shall see. We shall see what they do this summer. I mean, again, they're still a very talented group of players. I firmly believe that. But you start to the conventional wisdom seemed to be, if they get a striker in January, or they get a forward in January, it'll click and it'll just happen. And then you see some of the team selections they've had in recent weeks, where Chalobah kind of comes in out of nowhere to play against Real Madrid in the Champions League. Aubameyang out of literally nowhere to play last night against Arsenal, where he was nowhere near squads even in recent weeks. I just wonder how much damage this has actually done for Frank Lampard, because there seemed to be a school of thought, Dan, that it was like, well, look, Frank comes in, maximum 10 games at the end of the season, and it can't really make a huge difference. He's just holding the seat until someone comes in next year. Frank's lost 7 games.
Yeah,
They've scored only 2 goals.
That's not good. Like, generally at all levels of football, you get a bounce. I mean, don't get the bounce. Of course, that can be about the toxic environment, the dressing room too. But I suppose when he went in, I was thinking, like, what's the worst that can happen? And like that is now happening. Like, I feel like there's probably a will for him to do well, and I know it sometimes can be mocked a bit, and I wouldn't be mad in it sometimes, like some of the coverage.
The English media too defensive of him.
Yeah, and look, people have criticised how Irish media cover Stephen Kenny and other things, right? So, like, I sort of conscious of throwing stones in that regard, but there was this sort of tone around the time, that when Graham Potter left, that maybe he just wasn't elite, but then you replace him by someone who there's no evidence to suggest they're elite, other than the fact that they're elite in terms of the company they keep. But not maybe elite as a coach. And I think it is, these stats about the amount of games he's lost, this run, like, it's pretty grim, and I did go back, like, people say he's rubbish, like, Derby actually did a reasonable job at that stage to a point, and you sort of think, like, but how do you go back from that to going back to that solid upwardly mobile championship club again, and it not be a massive blow in some way? But yeah, we'll see if he has the desire to go and do that.
I think prospective employers have to look at his time at Everton and the 2 stints at Chelsea, because that was within the Premier League, and in the case of Chelsea it was with a reasonably good group of players to be able to work with. Similarly, I think with Steven Gerrard, he's probably going to be judged somewhat against what Unai Emery has done. They actually lost the game last weekend, but 17 really good fixtures under Emery. He brings them from just outside the bottom 3 all the way up into the European positions, and makes that same group that Steven Gerrard was unable to get a kick out of to look actually like quite a good team.
Yeah, and again, I would say Gerrard did pretty well at Rangers. He might have taken over at a decent time, in the context of what was going on there, relative to Celtic sort of finding their way towards getting a good manager, which they now do. But yeah, no, like, that is damaging for them. Like, just as like the Tuchel stuff was for Lampard, the first time round. Like, you kind of forget that year of the transfer embargo. I think he was perceived relatively positively, and then they got sort of they got money, and that's where it all went wrong. So, like, you can you could build an argument that maybe there's a certain type of role for him that might work. You know, I sort of always feel he's one of those with the lobby that's there for him sometimes, is that the ultimate thing is him being England manager one day, and how much do you have to do to get that job? And when Southgate got there, he didn't have to do a huge amount, but he was a different type of thing, and he was inherent, you know, he's embedded in the system, and it's worked. But yeah, for Lampard and Gerrard, actually, it's, you know, that's I don't know. It's an uncertain development for them.
For anyone who missed it earlier, we go from a prospective England manager in Frank Lampard to one of the shortest England managers of all time in Sam Allardyce. Sam, no shortage of confidence in his own ability at his press conference earlier today.
I might be 68 and look old, but there's nobody ahead of me in football terms. Not Pep, not Klopp, not Arteta. So it's all there with me, and I share it with them. They do what they do. I do what I do. But in terms of knowledge and depth of knowledge, I'm up there with them. I'm not saying I'm better than them, but certainly as good as they are.
Well, even if you don't agree with him, Dan, you have to kind of acknowledge his own confidence in his own ability, which might be required for the next few games.
Oh yeah, everyone's talking about it, right? And are you more inclined to be interested in Leeds at the weekend as a consequence? Yeah, I wouldn't say they've grabbed me this year, you know, in terms of their story, as much as like they're a well-supported team in Ireland. I mean, yeah, like he probably could do a few more medals, you know. But then again, I understand, you know, he never got the chance to, like, you know, have state-funded, team sort of pushing things in his direction. Look, I mean, it's. Are
you going to suggest here that if Sam Allardyce had got a job at the very top of the Premier League, now, I will never take away from some of the jobs he's done.
The Bolton stuff was actually quite innovative at the time.
It was. And even if, like, he brought in players who were discarded maybe at the wrong time by the clubs that they were there, there's still a little bit left in them. And that Bolton team played some fabulous football. You don't put a team out with Djorkaeff and Okocha if you're not intending to actually play some nice football.
Yeah, no, and that's it. Like, I mean, I think at that stage, like, you know, sometimes he's spoken about in sort of that sort of dinosaur bracket, because maybe a style of play he likes, but you'd speak to people around at that time, and, you know, as I said, there was an innovative streak to how they sort of went about things in terms of their science element of it, you know, and they had a bit more going on around them. But maybe now, like, almost every manager is like that, and like to the nth degree of it. Like, and I don't know. I always wonder with him, is it just like that England situation and how it all played out. I mean, it's a sort of that's in his life, like that's the tragedy that should be on stage, you know. Like you eventually get there. Like, I mean, you know, you think of a job where an England manager making those type of statements is probably what people might have thought they needed at that stage, and it turned out then he's gone and they're replaced by someone who's almost the opposite of that in terms of the image they convey, and then you have to watch as that person goes and like brings them as close as anyone has with what is a good group of players that have come along, that obviously you can't really control that to a degree as an international manager. And you kind of wonder, in his own mind, will he always be defined by that disappointment? You know, it's probably a hard
done by in that
case.
It's
probably a hard one to shake and get off, because that was probably the gig he got, which was against all the odds that he got there. You know, relative to where he started. I like the clip going around from BBC this evening talking about Pep never won the League of Ireland First Division, which is true. You know,
and will never change. I got a feeling Pep is not coming in.
It's unlikely. I mean, I know there's a bit of vibrancy around the league at the moment, but I'm not seeing him rocking up in that loan anytime soon.
Waiting for Galway to go up this season. Athlone is waiting for next year.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Right. Yeah, maybe that's it.
Let's not run Athlone down too much.
No, I'm not. No.
Particularly after the win against Finn Harps on Bank Holiday Monday. Lambing, sheep, Bulmers and off the ball. This is life. One of our texters on 5316. I'm not sure if that's James Skell. It could well be. I think these are the three loves of his life combined. So maybe he can confirm if he's the texter.
What does this say?
So lambing, sheep, Bulmers and off the ball. This is life. maybe reflects the good weather we're having at the moment. Maybe it's good lambing weather.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about lambing to know if having Bulmers while doing it. Having Bulmers while doing it is advisable.
I'd say it makes it better. Yeah, most likely.
You've got a confidence about your performance. Yeah, I don't know.
There you go. A decent night to be had, all in all. Looking at the league here at home, Dan, which we kind of alluded there a moment ago. I mean, Tim Clancy has lost his job at St. Pat's. What was your take on this? Because I kind of see two different discussions happening at the moment, which is on the face of it, Pats aren't that far off at the moment and it feels maybe a little bit harsh. On the other hand, some Pats fans particularly have pointed out that really since the European run last year, the results haven't been great, and that maybe this is not reaching the standards that they were at 2 years ago. Yeah, and it's a funny one really, because like the Stephen O'Donnell departure was so contentious and naturally a lot of feeling with it, but he was a hard act to follow as well. Like, they did finish second and win the cup in 2021, and like in this era where Shamrock Rovers are a little bit ahead of the rest, that's possibly the best you can do if you're at St. Pat's. And then it's never quite felt like a Union where he'd ever fully won people over there, and never quite had that sort of comfort of sort of having the ability to totally be the king of the castle. I know there's a lot of Pats probably have a lot of structures in place and influential people behind the scenes who were there, and you go into that environment rather than say everyone at the club. Previously probably at Drogheda, like everyone around him would have been his own people. He built something up over a period of time, so it's a little bit different, but look, that's probably the real world. You go to a bigger club, it's not, there's more layers to it. But yeah, I mean, they're formed this season. Like, I have seen them a couple of times this season, and I don't think they've been great. They did get a good run after the break that took them to a level, and there's been a few injuries at various times. They have some young players they've thrown in. Just probably there was definitely a sense that, well, yes, technically on points they were close enough to where they needed to be in the table. Sometimes it doesn't tell.
They just weren't purring. I thought they were very good sort of third quarter of last season after Europe. Even tactically how they approached the games in Europe, I thought they were very good. And you sort of never would imagine then that like a period of time later you might be out of work. And you watch, the Premier League is insane this year in terms of manager hiring and firing. David Moyes is one of the survivors. But one of the things about the league at home here, I mean, it's a very volatile environment. You're not getting a massive payoff if you leave, but it sort of did feel that you'd reached a point where a lot of the clubs had young managers who were going to be around for a while. So it's a slight surprise to me that it would happen this quickly, but maybe not a huge surprise that it happened at all.
Liam Buckley back in work again, gone to Cork. This seems to be a bit of a trend in the last few seasons now that clubs are moving towards having a sporting director, whether that be a young former player in some cases, like with Stephen McPhail, in this case going with someone very experienced across the league in Buckley in Cork now. Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure what's going on in Cork. I mean, the results have been bad, bit of speculation tonight about sort of stuff there. I'm not going to sort of go with that because I can't quite stand over it at the moment, but it's pretty uncertainty around the managerial picture. But it's been a tough run for Colin Healy there, and I don't know about this Liam Buckley appointment, how long it's been in the works. I know he was at a Cork game recently and there was a few people sort of commenting upon it, but I mean, that's by the by. Like, yeah, the general, like, I think one of the biggest issues with Irish football, as we watch Haaland make it 2-0, who else? One of the biggest issues is the lack of like staffing. I know I was talking earlier about the horse and greyhound stuff, and generally, like, clubs here, like how they operate is not ideal. Like, they generally would spend a lot of their budget on players rather than maybe like behind the scenes staff, and then you'll have a manager at a club who's carrying a lot of burden, and it's prudent. Like, it was a big issue here with a lot of people who have like ex-managers who are pro licenses who lose a job, and it's very hard for them to get back in. Like, they're almost potentially lost to the game, and there's a load of them out there. So Bows have got Pat Fenlon back in this year, Liam Buckley in a Cork. I think it's good to have the experience of these people employed at the game. Obviously you have to have a relationship with your manager, and Cork have a new owner this year, Dermot Usher, who's I think Kildare based. I think he's a dub, but like I'm not saying it's all been plain sailing there. and Cork's results have been poor, and there's always a sense of, I think there's a fondness for like a local flavour even to their team and some of the decision making, and it's just sort of on the edge of being choppy for them at the moment. So I wouldn't say it's the easiest situation for someone to walk into.
No, Erling Haaland being celebrated at the moment. Phil Foden straight across after his trademark celebration. 35 Premier League goals now. He's edging in on Dixie Dean's record. I don't know if he's going to get there, but to have gone over 50.
What's the record again? Is it?
I have it taken down here somewhere. It's a big one to try and get
I've thrown that to you.
So Clive Allen's mark was 49. So Haaland went over 50 in all competitions last week. So he needed 44 games to get to the 50. So now he's gone over the 50 in his 45th. I don't know. I mean, it seems absolutely remarkable. You look back at some of the records previously. Dixie Dean did 63 goals in all competitions in one season. Now that looks like a big ask, but he potentially has 3 games left in Europe and a cup final.
Yeah.
Does he play all the games? That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're crazy numbers. It's like, people playing Football Manager, Championship Manager when they were younger. It's like cheat code stuff. You'd have these players who, like, I don't know, they've been rigged to be excessively good. And they, this whole thing of someone like playing 20-something games and having more goals than appearances, and like, Ronaldo and Messi have probably already rewrote the convention on that. But the Haaland stuff is sort of they're scary stats. Yeah, I mean, it's. I know, to be fair, it's not as if he's had setbacks this season. Like, is this as good a run as he'll get? Will it ever be, will he ever have a sort of an injury-free campaign that's comparable? I don't think he has missed much, really, has he? So
no, he's a robust kind of guy, and generally when he comes back from injuries, he tends to come back and play quite well straight away. He's like just a machine or a robot, he was compared to, I think, earlier this year. But the other thing about it, Dan, before we go to the break, when it comes to Haaland, because we've been eulogising him all season, but when you look at the records and the numbers that the kid is putting up right now, earlier on the season there was this argument happening that maybe his goals weren't necessarily adding to the team because City were scoring the goals through him as opposed to players elsewhere. But like right now, he's the type of guy that every game, even when he looks a little bit off like the Arsenal game last week, you expect him to score. And that is the most valuable thing to have in football, is a number 9 who you can guarantee is going to score your goals.
Yeah, there was 1 or 2 games where you could understand that argument, and probably might have spoken about it here at some stage. Like, you definitely could see there was times where, his natural instincts weren't totally in sync with the team's natural style, and there was uneasy elements to it, even though he was scoring insane amounts of goals, right? And like, there have been times in recent years you've had teams where like Ronaldo has scored a load of goals, like 4, and that team hasn't really achieved their aims. But nowadays it's all going to. I mean, the Madrid games will probably write the history in some ways, in the sense of if they lose to Madrid, like, you can feel like whatever happens, the fallout will be Haaland centred, and if they win, it feels the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's going to be the ultimate test of that debate.
I think as well, when it comes to that game, all the narrative is going to be around, will City implode in the way that they did last season? Because really they had Real Madrid on the rack and beat.
They won until they lost. Yeah. They won the tie in the tactical battle and then capitulated for 5 minutes, and that was it.
I've never known anything like it.
No, they did what you had to do. Like, they proved that they could match them across the 2 legs and just got as close as you can get, and then just completely lost their way, to the point where it almost defies analysis, to the point of like, this is like a freakish thing. But naturally, there's a mental aspect to that you have to analyse.
Yeah, I know there has to be. I mean, Real Madrid don't come back in all these games in Europe coincidentally.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got something about them, especially when it comes to the European Cup. So the latest scores then, there's about 40 minutes of normal time left in both games. Liverpool lead against Fulham by 1-0. Manchester City now on course to go back to the top of the table. They are 2-0 up against West Ham. You are listening and watching the football show at the moment here on Off the Ball. Our football coverage is brought to you by Sky. You can catch the biggest live Premier League games every weekend on Sky Sports. We'll be back in a moment.
Football on Off the Ball
with Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk. Lunchtime Live
As part of our discussions with contracts about 3 years ago, basically we agreed that pharmacists would be coming into practices, and I think that is a way forward. It isn't a them and us. Like, basically, I don't do the job of a pharmacist. I don't believe pharmacy does the job as a GP. It is totally different training, and I think the greater majority of people know that it is different training.
Lunchtime Live with Andrea Gilligan. Weekdays at midday on News Talk. Conversation that counts.
Harvey Nominee Technology Specialists. Discover the latest and greatest in SIM-free smartphones, laptops, tablets, fitness and so much more. Like the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite, the perfect take-anywhere tablet for life on the move. Only $399. Or the Samsung Watch 4 smartwatch in silver, the perfect companion for your health and fitness journey. With stunning AMOLED 44mm screen. Now only $179, save €120. And with flexible payment options and our best prices guaranteed. Why shop anywhere else? Harvey Norman, your technology specialists.
Go! Maybe you want your business to run more smoothly. Maybe you want your business to smash online sales. Maybe you want your business to work more securely. Well, now your business can, because at Vodafone, we're now offering digital solutions from website builders to cybersecurity to Microsoft 365 and much more to help you better run, grow and secure your business. Search Your Business Can today to get started. Vodafone Business. Together we can. Terms and conditions apply. For full terms, visit vodafone.ie/terms/business.
Hi, I'm Louise Cooney and I want to tell you all about my podcast, Open Book, which is back for season 2. We've got a great cast of friends, well-known personalities and authors lined up for this season who'll be sharing the life lessons that help guide them on their path and explaining what success really means to them, as well as giving us some tips for creating your dream life and setting those all-important boundaries. Listen first to the new episodes of Open Book each Wednesday on the Go Loud app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Joanne Bregan. I was a nurse but wanted to go into teaching, so I did the postgraduate diploma in education practice at NCI. The course was excellent, and everything I learned there, I definitely use now in my teaching career. When I see myself now, I see living proof that NCI really helped me find my path.
On Wednesday, May 10th from 5 to 7 p.m, join us for NCI's online open evening and learn about our full and part-time courses in business, computing, psychology and education. To register, visit ncirl.ie.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Welcome back to the Football Show. Our own Richie McCormick has been crunching the numbers, and there's still 18 players historically who've scored more goals in a single season in England than Erling Haaland. Now, granted, sometimes that was when the goals per game was a little bit higher, and also at times when there were more games being played in a season. But Erling Haaland potentially could still get past Dixie Dean's record of 63 now that he's gone to 51 goals for the season. Man City in cruise control at the moment. Phil Foden has just come on for Julian Alvarez, a nice sub to be able to bring on. And City, with 10 minutes to go, lead 2-0 against West Ham, and Liverpool continue to lead against Fulham by 1-0. Now, for something slightly different, we're going to have a chat about the Ryan McBride Foundation. I'm delighted to say that Gareth McCay is with us, who's a founding member of the foundation. Gareth, how are you getting on?
Not so bad. Well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, tell us about what's happened here, because you guys have got an upcoming massive fundraiser, and it's not just something that's like an annual fundraiser or something that you've got planned. Because of different consequences around Brexit, and also I guess because of the Stormont Assembly not being sitting currently, you found yourselves in quite the push for funding for the foundation.
Yes, we do. When we originally set up the foundation after Ryan passed away, it was set up using a lot of funds from various League of Ireland fans and a number of people from kind of across the world really who donated into a fund. And we obviously kept us and got us up and running. But over the last 4 years, we've had applications and for funding the government here in Northern Ireland through the Executive Office, and we've built up programs. And at the minute, we now deliver programs to around 2,500 children per week in schools, and it's around coaching and football, but it's around motor skills, childhood obesity, and then we also, carry messages regarding bullying and things around sectarianism, racism, etc. And unfortunately, we've been notified that our funding's going to be cut, and a lot of other community groups here in Northern Ireland, and particularly here in Derry as well, have lost all of their funding. So there's mass redundancies and just a mass kind of exodus of all the services that's being provided.
Yeah, because Gareth, when the foundation was set up in Ryan's memory a few years ago, I think it was around 2017 when you set it up, initially it seemed like it was going to be to try and provide opportunities for youngsters around the city to learn the game and to play football. But it sounds like you've got a more holistic approach, or maybe things have evolved in the 5 or 6 years since.
Yeah, things have evolved. I mean, the foundation still runs soccer camps. It runs those right throughout the summer, right throughout the winter and Easter, etc. And there is an element of getting kids to play football, but I think what we soon found in the primary schools is that it's not really a case of getting kids to play football. It's a case of getting them to move at all, and basic coordination skills, because a lot of them spend a lot of time on social media or on Xboxes and all the rest. And you can see it yourself if you go in the streets these days, where you might have played football years ago, you go there now and there's no one playing football anymore. They're all at home playing FIFA. So we found that we had to take a different approach to this. We had to actually just start getting them moving, getting them active. And the foundation's grown. We've 6 or 7 staff that work now with us, full time. And yeah, I suppose it just became much bigger than it was ever really planned to be. But I think Ryan's name carried so much weight, and the kind of idea behind the foundation kind of grabbed people's attention. And we've had just a lot of good people involved with it, and it has grown in a number of different kind of areas. So the foundation is just there to try and help young people in Derry, whatever way that may be.
And the staff and the coaches who are going in currently, by the sounds of it, particularly where this has got an emphasis around the primary schools, were you maybe supporting schools who wouldn't have had those coaches or maybe people in place to work with the kids beforehand?
Yeah, there was really no one doing the type of thing that the foundation now does. And we went in because we thought we could help in some of the local areas. And we've also had there's another aspect of it as well, that we've got some really experienced coaches, but some of the coaches that we have been brought in apprenticeships, so they're maybe 16, 17, 18, and come out of school, maybe no qualifications, and that route's not going to work for them. So they've come in to work with us as young coaches, and it's given them a start in the game. It's given them some basic coaching. We get them badges, we get their coaching badges, and all their safeguarding and child protection qualifications. So it means that someone could maybe earn, well, they're obviously earning a wage with us, but in the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years, they can earn money coaching, earn money, refereeing small-sided games, all the rest of it. So, as you said earlier, it's a holistic approach. The foundation's kind of, we're not kind of blinkered down the one alleyway. We're looking to help young kids at, from age. We have a little kickers on from age 3 to 5 on a Saturday morning with primary schools, and then we work with players that are a bit older in our camps, and then we're helping young guys leaving school as an access way in the coaching. So there's just a number of different aspects, and we're not closed off to anything, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So explain to me then, you've got the momentum of the foundation being set up at the start, and the fundraising around that, and crucially the state funding that was coming in. Everything is building along. And then what happens that's made the funding so difficult right now, where you guys feel like you're on the brink of going to the wall? Well,
one of the issues is that with the funds that you receive from the likes of the executive office and the funders, essentially what you have to do is you will run the project for 12 months, but you'll run it for 3 months, and then you claim back your costs from the previous 3 months. So at the minute, the foundation's owed over 20,000 from government here in Northern Ireland, and it's not the case that we won't get those funds. It's just the case that everything seems to be moving so slow at the minute, and we don't know when we'll get them. And the funding runs financial year, so April to March. As of March 31st of March, we have no funding. We are owed £20,000 from last year, and we've been given no grant for this year. We've been told that because of no sitting government and budget cuts, that our funding is going to be cut, and we've also been told that there's no there's no date been set yet as to when we'll even find out when we've got the funding. So at the minute, we're still running the programme, but we're running it at our own risk, because there's a good possibility that we won't be able to claim back the hours that we're doing at the minute. So if you think about it, we're in 30 schools, and we have 2 each week, and we have 2 coaches per school. So if you add that all up, it comes to a hefty bill. And essentially, the people who are on the board, who are all voluntary, we had to put our hands in our own pockets last month and pay the coaches' wages ourselves. So that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, I mean, that's not sustainable to get into a position where you're taking on your own personal debt to try and keep the programme going. So what's the next step then?
Well, we've had to look at fundraising campaigns. We've, as you'll know from League of Ireland, Ryan was number 5, and it's a number that Derry City have since retired, and so 5 is always a big number. And so Friday's the 5th of the 5th, and we're doing a Go Red for Ryan campaign. So the idea is that you on Friday you'll wear something red and you donate £5. And with all of our schools that are on our programme are getting involved on it as well, because obviously there's a benefit for them, because if we can get the funding, they'll get certainty that they're going to have the programme for the next 12 months. With workplaces getting involved, sports teams, and then we've had a lot of Ryan's ex-teammates, ex-opponents, and people who knew him. Kenny Cunningham, obviously from your own show, he coached Ryan when Ryan played in the League of Ireland Select for the Dublin Super Cup, probably about 7-8 years ago. So Kenny's always kind of been there to help us with things. He's done a dinner for us, and he played in our soccer sixes, so he did a wee video for us online. So we're just trying to get the word out, and we're hoping that this will give us some breathing space and give us some certainty that we can kind of keep things going at least to the end of the school year, which is the end of June.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great to see the football community comes around people when required in these cases. You mentioned Kenny Cunningham. There's a few Kennys involved here. Kenny Shields, former Derry boss, and also Stephen Kenny, I think, is helping you guys out at the moment as well.
Yeah, so Kenny Shields is on our board. So he's always been part of the foundation. He's part of setting it up, and he still is. He still gives up a lot of his time. He's come and done some coaching master classes for us, for coach education. And Stephen Kenny is also, he's patron of the Ryan McBride Foundation. Obviously Stephen played a massive part in Ryan's life and career. He changed his life really. Ryan was playing pub football, and he was told that essentially he wasn't really good enough, and he got picked up playing in a summer cup game, and was told to kind of report to the Brandywell next week for to see how you get on. And he went over, and within sort of 8 or 9 months he was playing the first team against Shamrock Rovers at home and got man of the match. And Stephen Kenny took a massive gamble on him, because there's not many managers I think that would look at someone who's never played professional football, never been in an academy, and basically playing for a pub team, and bring them from that to League of Ireland and playing against Gary Twigg that night. I think Stephen did something very special, and as I said, changed Ryan's life, because set him up for the career that he had and become captain of his hometown club. And I think if you've ever been to Brandywell, you'll probably know where Ryan's house is. It's right behind the stadium. So it's just a story. I don't think there's many stories like it. A lad who kind of lives 7 or 8 doors down, gets plucked and ends up going on to captain the club. It's just an amazing story, and Stephen deserves a lot of credit for what he did. You
mentioned that there's a cross-community element to all this too, and in many ways it's a cross-border story, because you've got Derry City, your club, who are currently playing in the League of Ireland. I presume there are students who probably cross the border to maybe go into some of the schools that they're going into currently. Is there any way that the government here in the Republic of Ireland could potentially provide some funding towards you, or are you entirely at the whim of the UK government when it comes to this funding?
No, we're not really. We've received funding previously from the Department of Foreign Affairs for some cross-border work that we did. And in the schools that we're in, so the foundation is in schools both sides of the river here. It's in Protestant schools, Catholic schools, schools that don't identify as either, some integrated schools. And in order that we're not just coaching in separate schools, we set up like a Champions League, and the groups are intensely set up so there's a mixture of students with different backgrounds in it. So we're trying to bring the schools actually together to play against each other, but there's always the ethos of friendship behind it. And then we have a massive Ryan McBride Schools Cup at the end. So yeah, and a lot of the children are coming in from Donegal. A lot of our schools are right on the border. So there's all those aspects are built into it. So yeah, it's say we've kind of thought about all those type of things of trying to use peace and reconciliation, etc. And there is a fund now, I think, that's been set up. We've been sort of directed towards that, and it is a fund that's been set up, I understand, by the Irish government, and it is open for groups in Northern Ireland to apply as long as there's a cross-border element to it. And to say it's not an issue for us because we're literally a stone throw from Donegal, and we run camps in Buncrana as well, and we run them in the city here. So we're working cross-border as it is.
Gareth, for those who might be listening to us right now, because when it comes to 5-5 at the end of this week, it'll probably be a lot of people in the local area who will be throwing a literal £5 to you. Is there a way for people to send funds to the foundation if they're listening elsewhere in the country right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a Just Giving page set up. So we're on Twitter, it's McBride 5 Foundation. We also have a Facebook page, so if anyone wants to go on there, they can catch the videos of all the kind of players, past and present, and they can donate £5 as well. And as I say, it'd be much appreciated, and we especially appreciate your guys' support for bringing us on this evening as well.
Our pleasure. Look, best of luck with the fundraising this coming Friday, and probably more fundraisers will probably be required on the far side as well. Gareth, thanks a million for joining us on the show.
Not a problem. Thanks, all the best, lads.
Almost full time, Dan, in the game that we're watching currently at the Etihad, and Phil Foden, who we mentioned had come on, speculative enough shot, ends up in the net.
Yeah, no, it is game over now. I mean, yeah, it could have been any number in the end. Really, like West Ham had one or two moments, but yeah, sort of a fortuitous element maybe, but yeah, game over.
Hey, you got to buy a lottery ticket.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's not quite world class basics there, but it's just more. Yeah, get a bit of luck sometimes too.
Volley outside the box. Phil Foden scores 3-0, very comfortable. A lot more comfortable than it looked at half time where West Ham were digging in. Liverpool have won again. They've beaten Fulham by 1-0. I don't know, Dan, if there's going to be enough shakiness from the teams higher up, especially now that Liverpool have played 34 games compared to United have 2 games in hand, and you've got Newcastle with a game in hand who are currently 6 ahead. Yeah. They've timed this little run of 5 wins in a row in the league too late. Yeah, no, it feels like it's just a little bit too far, and also, can you be convinced that they're going to, as much as it is a run, you can't underestimate it. Like, can they bring it all the way? And yeah, probably the Europa League, which I know some of them aren't mad about being in it, but still probably, life is short. Competition you can win. They might well look at finishing 5th or 6th place as successful compared to where they were a few months ago. Yeah, I mean, maybe so. Yeah, like it's not the goal start of the year. No, of course, but I mean, it's. Again, it's not the end of the world. We're time to take a short break. Football here on Sky, on Off the Ball even is brought to you by Sky. You can catch the biggest Premier League games each weekend on Sky Sports.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Rugby's giants are coming to Dublin's Aviva Stadium this May. Watch the EPCR Challenge Cup and Heineken Champions Cup finals live on Friday 19th of May and Saturday 20th of May. Last remaining tickets for Friday night's EPCR Challenge Cup final.